back, everybody. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Derek Gunn, Barrett Brooks, Rob Ellis. Thrilled to talk to our next guest. It's been a minute. He does an awesome job, and you check out his writing and his podcasting at The Ringer. And of course, you can hear his vocal stylings, Spotify, but does an awesome job. Formerly The Athletic, ESPN, Philly Mag. Follow him on Twitter at Sheil Kapadia. Sheil, what's going on, my man?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
What's going on, man?
All right, let's start with the important stuff, Sheil. Should Embiid have played last night? If he did play last night, why not sit him in Phoenix? What is going on, man?
He should have sat against Phoenix. I mean, I don't know how you play him against Phoenix on the second end of a back-to-back where we all watched him against Golden State. I mean, the performance he put in, and then to not get the win, you say, all right, let's give him a day off at Phoenix. You have a day off after Phoenix, and then you play Monday night against Denver. So I don't know what they were doing. A week ago, I said, let's just get Harden, Embiid, and Maxey healthy for the playoffs. I don't care about seeding. I don't care about anything else. And now you've got Embiid with the calf. You've got Harden with the Achilles. And all of a sudden, this season that felt so different might not feel so different anymore a month from now. We'll see.
See, I've been screaming that. I've been screaming that for the past month now. I need health instead of positioning. You know, I mean, I would love both, but realistically, health means more to me than positioning.
But you could have got both. Sit him against Phoenix. Let him play last night. No?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you could have. You're right. You're right.
Sheil, I got a bad feeling these little nagging, lingering injuries that Embiid has is going to carry over into the second season. We've been down this path before. We've read this story before, and I just got a bad feeling that we're gonna see him limping through the playoffs again.
Yeah, I know. And this season really, to me, felt different from the previous versions of these Embiid teams. I mean, I was pretty bullish on this team a week or two ago with the way Maxey's playing, with the way their role players are playing. But it's like you said, I mean, you really need Embiid to be Superman in the playoffs to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, especially going on the road against Boston. And so you need him and Harden, honestly, to be 100% in the playoffs. So it's impossible to know, hey, we still have some time. So let's just relax, get treatment, forget about everything else, and let's see what it looks like in game one of the first round of the playoffs.
All right, Sheil, let's dig in on the Birds, man. We haven't spoken since a lot. I think it was Super Bowl, maybe was the last time we spoke, but since a lot of this has gone down, we had this question amongst ourselves yesterday. We kind of batted this around. I'm curious where you stand. If you look at their offseason thus far, with still a lot of time to go, obviously, we haven't even gotten to the draft, but would you say thus far they're better, worse, or the same than they were when the season ended in Arizona, whatever, a month plus ago?
I would have to say worse pretty clearly. I mean, just you look at it from a talent perspective, you're going to have more questions at linebacker. You're going to have more questions at safety. You're going to have a little bit of a question there at right guard. So now those aren't your premium positions. I'm not, you didn't lose a quarterback or a left tackle or an edge rusher or anything like that. So I'm not saying they're all of a sudden a mediocre team or a bad team. I think they're still a very good team, one of the best teams in the NFC. But if you're just asking me to compare who they are now compared to that team that played in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, I mean, to me, it's pretty easy to say that they're going to be at least a little bit worse.
From a team balance standpoint, we know that they're going to be an offensive heavy team, and we've seen a shift. That used to be the defenses won championships. Do the Eagles have enough on the offensive side of the ball to give them just as much success as they had? You know what I'm saying? Last year, because they're heavily offensively. Last year, they were kind of a balance because they had a great defense also. Do they have enough on the offensive side of the ball to take them where they need to go?
I think so, and it's a good point you make. I mean, if you just kind of zoom out and look at it league-wide and how a lot of different teams are building their rosters, it really has been more offensive efficiency, kind of carries over year to year. Like if you have the same quarterback and the same offensive scheme, you can be good and be in the mix year after year. It doesn't mean you're going to win the Super Bowl or even get to the Super Bowl every year, but defense has a little more variance with the turnovers and the injuries and things like that. So I think they're in good shape offensively. I mean, Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, A.J. Brown, these are guys who are either in their prime or ascending players. I mean, they're all, 27 years old or younger. And so you have that I just put faith in Jeff Stoutland and the offensive line, that even if you have a injury here or there, or you have some older players, or you have to fill a hole at right guard, that basically they're going to be able to figure it out. So we'll see what that looks like in August when they get through the draft and add some bodies. But yeah, I mean, I would expect them to have a top 5, a top 8 offense once again next season. And I think that'll be enough to really get them in the mix in the NFC.
Sheil, I think the biggest question mark has to be on the defensive side of the ball. Revamp coaching staff led by a new coordinator. We don't know a lot about his scheme. And as I've jokingly said to these guys, I hope he has a scheme and not a philosophy like his predecessor. But it's going to take a while for the two to mesh in terms of the players understanding what's expected of them and him understanding how to implement his players at strategic moments of a game. And that's not something that you're going to be able to fully come to grips with in OTAs and training camp, because they don't play anybody in preseason anymore.
Yeah, listen, he's going to be now I've said this before, the defense is going to take a step back this upcoming season. I don't think they're going to take a step back because of the defensive coordinator change. I mean, we've talked about, I think, Jonathan Gannon in my previous stops here, and so we don't need to get into a long discussion about that. But I mean, the fact of the matter is the talent's not going to be as good as it was last year. You're going to be worse at linebacker. You're going to be worse at safety. And by the way, corner is a position, and we've seen this with the Eagles before. Once guys get into their early 30s, when they fall, when they start to decline, like, it goes pretty quickly. I mean, if you look at just around the league last year, I think the only guys who started games at corner who were like 32 or older, I think Patrick Peterson might have been the only guy. And now you've got Darius Slay hitting that age. James Bradbury will be 30 once the season starts. So that's going to be a bit of a question mark. And then the schedule strength. I mean, they did not face a great, opposing quarterbacks last year. And so the schedule is going to get a lot tougher this year, specifically from a defensive standpoint. So to me, what do I want to see? I want to see what you just said, Gunner. Like, are they doing things schematically where you say, okay, it might not have worked. They might not have shut out the other team, but I can see what he's doing there. I like the aggressiveness. I like how he switched up his game plan based on the opponent. Because if you're going to go in with a great offense, really what you need is a defensive coordinator who can come up with enough wrinkles in a one-game playoff against a great quarterback to keep you in the game or help you win the game. Mm-hmm. That didn't happen in the Super Bowl. I mean, they needed one play in the second half, just one play, and they weren't able to do anything to slow down the Chiefs. So that's really what it comes down to. To me, it's not about what do the statistics say with the defense at the end of the season. I mean, they might be like 15th in defense rather than top 5 in defense. But do you have a little more faith that just in that one-game playoff, you're going to be able to cook something up against a great quarterback or a great play caller?
Sheil, what do you make of the Gardner Johnson thing, the way it all played out? Do you look at it more as, hey, look, the Eagles should have somehow figured out a way to keep this guy, or he misread this thing, his agent misread this thing, whatever? How do you view the way it all led to him being a Detroit Lion, not an Eagle?
Yeah, I think you would have to say that him and his agent misread the situation. I mean, I do the free agency rankings, and I try to look at who signed last year. And like, my floor for Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was like around $10.5 million per year. I thought if he takes that, that's going to be a team-friendly deal. And then he gets 1 year, $6.5 million. Like, I don't think you can say anything other than his side probably misread the situation, had lofty goals at the beginning of free agency, didn't get them, and then all of a sudden kind of got stuck there. Now, having said that, if you told me beginning of free agency, Eagles would have had a chance to bring back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for 1 year at $6.5 million, we all would have said, yes, absolutely, 100%. Don't think twice about that. And so from an Eagles perspective, you're losing one of your younger, potentially ascending players on defense, 25 years old. So that matters from an Eagles perspective. Having said that, I can see it from their end. I mean, they tried to make an offer early on. It wasn't there. They moved on. And then I think they were probably a little bit worried about, man, if we bring him back on that 1 year, $6.5 million deal, is he going to be happy? What's he going to be like in the locker room? How's he going to play? All those things. Because that was a big reason why the Saints gave him up for nothing. I mean, it was really a similar situation. 1 year with the Saints, they trade him for nothing. Another year with the Eagles, and then they just kind of let him walk in free agency.
Well, let me ask you this then. Where are they at as far as – I don't want to start any forest fires or anything, but – and I don't want to say anything. There's nothing to do with, any other quarterback in the league as far as being disgruntled or you don't want to get traded or anything, but Where are they at, you think, in the process of signing Jalen? What's the reason? What's your reasoning why he hasn't signed on the dotted line? Both parties agree that he's going to make the money. What would you think would be a sticking point for them? Each one of them, kind of, digging their heels into the dirt.
I think timing is just part of it. A lot of the teams, they want to get the rest of their roster in place because you have time to get the quarterback deal done. And we've seen historically with Jeffrey Lurie, this hasn't been an issue. I mean, they've just been aggressive. They're not lowballing the quarterback. Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb, Carson Wentz. Listen, for better or worse, their philosophy is let's be aggressive and let's get ahead of the market if we have somebody that we like. But it is impossible to talk about Hurts without looking at the rest of the quarterback market because you've got Lamar Jackson, you've got Joe Burrow, you've got Justin Herbert. And so agents have to decide, do we want to get our deal done or do we want to let someone else sign? And then we can say, well, we want above what this player signed. And then the guaranteed money aspect of it, from the Deshaun Watson deal last year, that's probably the biggest storyline in the league right now, honestly, with the Lamar Jackson thing. Like, if all these quarterbacks, if they just met somewhere this weekend and said, hey, let's all make this a sticking point that we're not signing unless we get fully guaranteed deals. It's time for a shift in the NFL for players to be taken care of better. Then the owners all of a sudden will have a problem on their hands because, I mean, they can use the franchise tag, but we all know that if the Eagles or the Bengals were to use the non-exclusive franchise tag on their quarterbacks, you would certainly have a market for them. So I think there's a lot of those different things that play here. And the last thing is, I don't know what Jalen Hurts wants. Does he care about a guaranteed deal, a fully guaranteed deal? Does he want a longer term deal like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes? Those guys really help their teams because they signed longer term deals where he can spread the money out. Jalen Hurts, if he wants to maximize his earning potential, he might say, give me a 3 or 4 year deal. The cap's going to spike. I'll hit the market again. We'll do another deal in 4 years and my number will be even higher. So I don't know specifically what Jalen Hurts wants, but I do think under Jeffrey Lurie with quarterbacks, the Eagles have really kind of earned the benefit of the doubt that you feel like, just be patient and they're probably going to be able to get something done.
Hey, Sheil, if the Eagles stay in that 10 spot, since they brought Greedy Williams in, do you think they would shy away from a corner if they stayed in the 10 hole?
I don't think so. I think Greedy Williams, I think what smart teams do is they try to set a floor before the draft. And so they say, hey, if we had to play a game tomorrow, could we play a game? Because you don't want to force picks in the draft. We've seen that in the past. When they force a position, that's when things go badly. So I think that's what more the Greedy Williams signing was about depth. I think ideally, he's a number 4 cornerback. I don't think he's guaranteed to even, make the roster, honestly, depending on how healthy he is, how he plays at training camp. So I think if there's the right guy there at 10, or even if you trade back a little bit and you like one of these guys, Joey Porter, Christian Gonzalez, Devon Witherspoon from Illinois, if you like one of those guys.
Yes. Yeah,
you can draft over Greedy Williams and then kind of figure it out. Like, they didn't make such a financial commitment to him that I think it changes your draft plans.
Yeah, Sheil, I know there's a danger in just picking for need. That can get you in trouble. And the Eagles have always cautioned against that with the way they've gone about it. But there are some clear and present needs here, man, like linebacker, safety. And I'm not saying with the 10th pick necessarily, but that's got to probably be addressed pretty high, no?
Yeah, it's a fine line. I mean, I don't believe any GM who says, you don't draft for need at all. I mean, of course you do. You're not going to draft a quarterback,
Right.
in the first round. You're not going to, in my opinion, draft a wide receiver in the first round. You've got young ascending players under contract for multiple years. That's just a bad use of resources. So they do have need. Now, historically, linebacker and safety are not positions that they valued. So I'm not telling you they're not going to, even running back, really, we can look at. I mean, that Rashad Penny contract, they didn't commit a lot of money to Rashad Penny, and Rashad Penny has not stayed healthy for his career. So those are like 3 positions that I would say maybe day 2. I mean, it wouldn't shock me with the 30th pick if you go there. I would be pretty surprised at number 10 if you stay there that you address any of those needs. So I think Howie Roseman, whether it's luck, patience, or whatever, they've been able to fill some needs later in the offseason than typically you would think. I mean, look at James Bradbury. Like, last year, if James Bradbury doesn't get released and they're not the highest bidder, who's playing corner for the Eagles in week 1? I mean, it could have changed really the whole complexion of that defense, maybe this season. So I think you can be patient to a degree. you can try to, like I said, set the floor at some of those positions with that, which I think they've done a little bit with Nicholas Morrow and, the safety signings with Terrell Edmonds. But honestly, the big thing is they need young players from 2022 to step up. I mean, Jordan Davis needs to be a guy at defensive tackle. Nakobe Dean, you need to be reading reports in August at training camp that Nakobe Dean has made the leap and he's ready to start, and the coaches love what he's done this offseason. I think that's a big factor in filling those needs as much as it is looking ahead to this draft.
How much are you buying into Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean? I mean, is it almost impossible to tell based off of playing time? I mean, a better sample size, obviously, of Jordan Davis, but do you have confidence that those guys are going to step in and be those players?
I'm kind of more in prove-it mode, I would say.
Okay.
I mean, just because we can only go off what we saw last year. I thought Jordan Davis was a fine prospect who had legitimate questions about him in terms of the lack of production in college, how he was used in college, the number of snaps. And what I saw in film from last year was not great with Jordan Davis. I mean, I thought he was okay. He showed a couple flashes, not a lot. But when you can sign a guy like Linval Joseph off the street in the middle of the season, and that's an upgrade over your rookie first-round pick, that's not great. Now, having said that, defensive tackles typically take some time to develop, and he had injuries last year, so I'm not going to bury the guy at all. Like, let's see what he looks like this year. And then Nakobe Dean, it was like every week you thought, what, is he going to like play himself into some type of defensive package or even a starting role? And it just never happened. In the coach's mind, he was never better than Kaiser White or TJ Edwards. And so I'm not telling you that means he's not going to be a good player, but that's what we go off in year one. So let's just kind of see what it looks like in year two. That's kind of where I'm at.
Give me your evaluation. I'm sorry, Bear. Give me your evaluation of them bringing Terrell Edmonds in to solidify the back end of their defense.
Yeah, I think I think in their ideal scenario, Terrell Edmonds would probably not have been their first choice or might not even be starting, would be more of a depth piece. I think he's, I think he's probably an average starter is what the market would tell you. He's been a free agent 2 years in a row, and there hasn't been much of a market for him. I mean, even last year, he goes back to Pittsburgh on kind of a minor deal there. So I have no issue with the move because at least he's a young player. He started in this league. I don't think he's going to kill you if you have to play him. At the same time, I think you're probably taking a bit of a step down from what you had last year. Even with Marcus Epps, I mean, Marcus Epps got, $6 million on the open market, and Terrell Edmonds didn't kind of sniff a deal at that range. So that kind of tells you what the league thought about, whether there was a difference between those two players.
He's going to show you a little bit. I guarantee that he's going to show you a little bit. But let me ask you this. Give me your ranking as far as order of importance in holes they need to fill. Mine, I'm going to give you just two of mine. One is, like you said, still the safety position. But I think that third wide receiver spot is something they need to address, someone they need to address that, come in and be a difference maker, because at this point, it's pretty underwhelming with Quez and his ability to take the top. I don't think he's reliable enough to take the top off because of his issues with catching. What direction do you think they should go in those two places?
Yeah, I think safety is a tough one. I think you have to look at the draft, certainly, and then you have to kind of see, are there opportunities like a Chauncey Gardner-Johnson from last year where you're able to make a trade in the summer, bring someone in, to fill a role. So there's no easy answer there, but I'm with you. I think ideally, you're not starting Terrell Edmonds and Reed Blankenship or Justin Evans, who's kind of a wild card there. Two of those guys at safety in week one. And then wide receiver 3 is tricky for me. I'm with you in your general premise that you'd like an upgrade there. Certainly. There's no doubt about it. I don't think you want to spend big resources to address that spot, just because if you look at it, that's going to be your 4th most targeted player, right? I mean, you got A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. So you can't be spending a high draft pick or a lot of money at that spot just because that person's not going to see a lot of playing time. Now, I can make the argument that, you want to kind of protect yourself if Brown or Smith suffers an injury. You want someone who can step in there also. So, I think there's if they took a wide receiver on day 2 of the draft and they said, hey, this guy's pro ready. He's going to play in the slot from day 1. He's got versatility where he can play on the outside if one of those guys gets injured. I don't think that would be a bad idea if that's their best player available. So Quez, I'm with you. Like, you wish you would have seen a little bit more out of him. You wish he would have come through in some bigger spots last year. If he has to start next year, it's not the end of the world. But I'm kind of with you. I would like to see some competition, kind of another option there with your third wide receiver.
Sheil, how confident are you in Cam Jurgens just plugging in there at that guard spot, at least until Kelsey hangs it up?
Yeah, I mean, after the draft last year, I remember thinking, does this guy have guard versatility? Because if not, why are you spending the 51st overall pick on a center? Because I just feel like Kelsey's going to go year to year, and he's going to, I don't know. I think it would almost have to take a bad team season or something bad physically for him to just say, I don't want to play anymore. I mean, if the team's playing well and he's feeling okay physically, he seemed to be having a great time last year. He's playing at a high level. So I question that use of resources a little bit. Now, I think Jurgens will get the opportunity. I don't think he was an obvious fit at guard. At the same time, I do kind of give their coaching staff the benefit of the doubt there. And I think he was a very good prospect. I thought he was an excellent center prospect. Like if Kelsey went down, I think he would come in and maybe wouldn't be as good, but would play well. So I kind of give him the benefit of the doubt with the offensive linemen. I mean, just 2021, it wasn't talked about at all, but there's 2 starting guards did not play that year, and they still had a top 5 offensive line. So they're kind of able to identify these guys. I think they give Stoutland a pretty big voice in kind of the draft in scouting these guys, and he's been able to make it work.
Sheil, are you ready to give up on the Quez Watkins experiment and move on?
I mean, kind of like I always say, ideally you would have an upgrade there, but if he, I wouldn't say just give him up for nothing, release him, anything like that. I understand fans' frustrations, and certainly when you watch them, you have some of those frustrations. But if he has to play, it's okay. It's not ideal. You had a top 5 offense last year, and he was your slot, and he was your number 3 receiver. But yeah, I would be looking to see if there's a way to upgrade from that spot.
Sheil, let me ask you about the nationally here. Lamar Jackson. This thing gets weirder as the days go on. Is there an end in sight? Is it? Do you feel like Harbaugh's saying yesterday we still love him, he's our guy, we're planning everything around him, and yet I don't know, something's off here. What do you think ends up happening there?
Yeah, I mean, listen, never say never. Situations are salvageable. There are financial apologies as all these things are at play. At the same time, if you're asking me where he's playing next year, I don't think it's going to be on the Ravens. I mean, I think this thing has gotten too personal, too emotional. And I think that let's wait until after the draft. I think there are teams that are probably saying, well, we don't want to make a move now because one of these quarterbacks might slip to us, or we might be able to move up a little in the draft to get a quarterback. But once the draft is over, there are going to be teams that say, man, that didn't go as planned. We didn't get a guy, and now we have to just reassess and look at all options. So I think there are still teams out there. I mean, I think the Colts have been pretty open that they're not slamming the door on Lamar Jackson. I think there could be a surprise team, a team like the Detroit Lions. I look at them and say they're ready to win right now. And I know Jared Goff had a good year last year, but man, you plug Lamar Jackson in there with what he's got around him, that's a Super Bowl contending team next year. A team like the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, Kirk Cousins is in the final year of his contract. They did 1 year. Kirk Cousins is still there, but he's not there next year. And that's a team that doesn't really they're not going to be bad enough to be drafting in the top 5 in the draft, in my opinion. They don't have anyone on the roster who they're grooming. Are they kind of a surprise team to watch? So I think a team like that after the draft will talk to the Ravens, will talk to Lamar. And I think a key point here is the contract Lamar signs with the new team is not necessarily a contract he would sign with the Ravens. We see that like Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Right.
The deal he signed with the Lions was probably not a deal he was willing to sign with the Eagles because there's hurt feelings and you feel like the team wronged you in that scenario. So I think Lamar Jackson is going to be playing elsewhere in 2023.
Sheil, as we sit here today, real quick, as we sit here today and we watch all the movings and shakings going on around the NFC in particular, Saints have their quarterback now. Washington has one of the best offensive minds in the game coordinating. As we sit here right now, we look at the Eagles, who consider to have one of the toughest, if not the toughest schedule coming up. Who do you think the biggest threat is to the Eagles in the NFC?
I'm probably going too much up for last year, but I think I would still say the 49ers. I mean, And
Okay.
that's crazy to say because I couldn't tell you who's starting at quarterback for the 49ers in week 1 and week 10 in the playoffs, but it's still a very talented roster. It's a well-coached team, and I think that they're at least going to be in the mix there. So, yeah, I would still probably lean towards San Francisco.
Out the door, Sheil, Philly's prediction. Do they win the East? How far do they go?
I will say I think I got them at 94 wins. I can't remember the last time I was this excited about a Philly season. I mean, I think it's going to be a party at the ballpark every night. I think we're going to have kind of a throwback to that 2007 to 11 range. So I've got 94 wins, which in this division probably not enough to win the NL
It's a nasty
East. So,
division.
Yeah, it's a nasty division. So I'll say wild card. But listen, Eagles I speak about objectively as a non-fan perspective. Phillies, I'm just going to say they're going to the World Series because I'm just in full fan mode with the Phillies. So I'll say 94 wins, and they're going to go back, and we're all going to have a really fun season watching.
I love your honesty, Sheil. We appreciate it, Sheil. We'll check you out on the Ringer, and of course, great content there with your podcast, your writing, and at Sheil Kapadia on Twitter. Sheil, appreciate it, man. Thanks. Good talking to you.
All right, thanks, guys. Take care.
Good.
All right, take care. That's Sheil Kapadia. Funny answer there on the Phillies. All right, let's come back. We keep it rolling, man. The killer guests just keep on rolling. You know who's on deck? He's warm out. He's got the pine tar. He's got the donut on the bat right now. He's actually swinging 2 bats as we speak. The one and only Michael Barkham when we come back. Don't go anywhere. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. All right, let me tell you about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, because knowing who to trust with your finances can be a very scary proposition, right? And I'm right there, front of the line. But I can tell you from personal experience that Jim and Principal are people that I trust with my finances, whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review. You might have a small business and you need help with your employee benefits. That's another resource that Jim can help you with. I know I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be as well. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You could email him as well, Murray, Murray.Jim@principal.com. That's Murray.Jim@principal.com.